I'm the only person there. Fuck.
07 14 1982. I'm not a fucking robot. Good. A match is not found, my ass. Okay, fuck this. Apparently, if I'm not found, then I'm not paying.
Only Democrats could fuck something up this bad.
Hello.
Hi, where is everybody?
6:30.
Well, I realize that, but when you do a Zoom meeting, you go on 15 minutes early.
Well, the power was out until just as you called.
Oh, good.
You must be the Wizard of Oz.
I am. I also do hundreds of Zoom meetings,
I know. You were a professional.
including hosting them.
Yeah.
But
well, I'm hosting this one.
Well, God damn it, you're supposed to be on 20 minutes early if you're the host.
No, I'm on 1 minute early, maybe.
Well, I'm the only person on it.
I know, but it has not started yet.
Well, it should have. Now there's another person on.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, go be the host. And as soon as my router reboots, I will be on.
All right.
And
Bye, Cindy.
Still be anybody else in Sierra City.
Well, you people in Sierra City it's pretty sick over there. If you just belonged over here where the socialists are, you would have power all of the time and broadband fiber optics.
That's great. I can hardly wait until you guys finally decide that you can come over the hill. I know you're kind of afraid of us, but
Yes.
you can.
We don't know if you've got your shots yet.
Yeah, we have.
Well, that worries me.
Yeah, I know.
You better get on this meeting. Only a Democrat could screw this thing up.
Shut up. I'll see you in a few minutes.
Bye.
Bye.
so Bill, you're from Bradley?
Sadly, yeah.
Yeah, we're sort of sometime residents of Downeyville. We got a place there. We live in Minnesota and we go there from time to time. So they let us in to participate. We talk about what, how things are in Minnesota relative to the way the Democrats are trying to prevail. We're the only state right now with a divided government, divided legislature. We have a Democratic governor and Democratic House, but the Senate is still is Republican right now, and they're holding things up as you might expect. But we're trying to change that probably in the next couple of years. Our part of town has done pretty well in terms of its electing Democrats, and I'd like to see that happen in Sierra County as well. Don't want it to see don't want it to fall victim to the the urge to become Jefferson.
Depperton.
You know, the state of Jefferson that seems
Oh.
to be providing
well,
a part of the
don't
state.
The state of Jefferson, they're relatively liberal people
No,
for this Sierra Valley side.
so there's supporters of it up there in Sierra Valley too.
Oh, sure.
I see.
Plus I'd say it's 5-1 right-wing Republicans.
Yeah, right.
Literally.
I think that, you know, one of the things that the Democrats need to do is get out and talk to people. I think you know, it's hard to do during this time because of the pandemic, but I think you know, it's just a matter of letting people know what you're up to.
It's dangerous over here. Hi,
Well, it
Paul.
was that way here, you know, it was kind of that way too here. You know, we were reluctant to put our proud Democrat badge on our shirts, but eventually it changed.
I put up all of the posters for all of our people when they're running for election. They tear them down during the night.
Same thing. But you know, what they took down the posters in our front yard one time. So I picked it up with a piece of Kleenex, took it into the police department and say, hey, maybe you could get fingerprints off of this. And I don't know, maybe the police seemed to be aware of who was doing it, and it didn't happen very much after that. You know, if you sort of take action to do something about it, and you know, I guess we usually got extra posters so that we could replace the ones that were knocked over.
So did I.
Hey, Bill, haven't seen you for a while.
That's a good thing. The fact that I can even be seen.
Yeah, this is true. Hi, Alicia. You're muted.
Darn it, I just did the opposite. Hi, everyone. I'm Alicia Fernandez. I'm Yolo County, out in the middle. I like to say out in the middle of nowhere, but I'm only about 10 minutes outside of Sacramento.
For those behind you,
Tomatoes.
this is tomatoes.
Yep,
Okay.
tomato fields. When I was growing up, that's where it's where I worked in the tomato fields. So I figured, well, why not have tomato fields behind me, right?
My electricity just came up, so others will be coming up soon. So nice to see you,
We've
Alicia.
heard that excuse. I've already heard that excuse. You've got
I
to
just
quit
got here and I
whining.
heard that excuse. I don't know.
We didn't lose
Got to quit
electricity.
whining in Sierra City.
You got to pay your electricity bill, Sylvia.
Yeah, and it would help if you guys would come to Sierra Valley, like I told Cindy, where the socialist organizations are. We keep everything running. The power runs, the fiber optics. Ask McKechnie.
There he is. Huh?
Ask me what?
Why those people in Sierra City, they can't keep their power on. They have no broadband or fiber optics. That,
They're
you
a
know,
bunch of whiners, Bill. They're just
Well,
nothing but whiners on the other side of the hill.
no, they live in the capitalist side of Sierra County. If they come over here where the socialists are,
Exactly.
they would have all of the good stuff.
And the grizzly bears.
What'd you get me into, Sylvia? What's going on here?
Well, I'm waiting for more people.
I'm teasing you.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'm just waiting for more people. You know, I'm kind of wondering if I should call some people because,
Oh,
You still got 4 minutes.
yeah, I'll give them a few more minutes.
I'm fine. It's all
yeah.
good.
I,
We had the electricity go out for 4 days. So that's like a long time for us.
Yeah,
Where
That
is
was
that?
May. Pardon?
Where?
Oh,
Where's
so I
your
live in
house?
Clarksburg, which is in Yolo County. I'm just gonna start right now with my background. You guys will already know it. And I'm really only maybe even 8 miles at the most from South Sacramento, but because we're a small community that may be a population of 1,000 out in the, it's all farming community. We are the last priority for if anything goes down in Sacramento or Elk Grove or some of the other cities, we're the last ones. So for 4 days,
Who's your
Sure.
provider?
PG&E, it's the only
Okay,
one we
well, you
have.
need to get in Pluma Sierra Rural Electric, which is a co-op
Oh,
and semi-socialist,
On our
And-
side, PG&E.
and they're almost bulletproof.
nice. We don't have an option out here, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Not
we
even
don't have an
close to-
option either. We're on PG&E and we're not particularly happy about it.
So
But
you mean the free market doesn't exist in South Sacramento?
I
And I
don't,
do no comment. Are we on yet? Or are we like just?
Recording everything.
Oh. Story of my life. Everything's recorded.
1,000 people would be a major metropolis in Sierra County.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, it's 1,000 people and it over mileage, right? So it's not like it's one town with 1,000. We're spread out in miles. I don't even know how many miles, but yeah. Yeah, probably a metropolis for you.
We have 3,000 in the county.
Oh my gosh, really?
No
80%
stoplights, no
vaccinated.
fast food restaurants.
That's a
And
good,
the county supervisor in Sierra City has to change the toilet paper in the public restroom.
That is so appropriate, right? Oh, wait, I didn't say that. Are we recorded? We're recorded? No.
we're getting some for our money.
That's right. At least you're getting toilet paper.
Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say something about PG&E and I forgot. Slipped my mind.
We lost Don.
We'll have power outages in a beautiful sunny day.
Yep.
They'll go out for hours. Have no idea why.
or
We
if it rains or snows or is windy or is not, it's a beautiful sunny day, it still goes out. Yeah.
Right. Somebody sneezed, it went out. I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm thinking that's what happened. But it's all good. We're actually thinking, okay, I'm going to tell you more than you ever need to know about me right now. But we have solar. And so we're actually thinking of getting a battery backup so that we don't have to worry so much when
It's good.
when the electricity goes. Because obviously we lost everything in the refrigerator and the house was, this was back in January, so it was very cold. But fortunately I don't have little ones, so we can survive it, but it's just irritating. And I'm sure you get it much worse where you're at. So I can't even begin to think what it's like past four days of no electricity.
Dismal. Dismal is the word. We've been there.
Texas.
Yeah, Texas. Yeah.
Mm. The
Okay.
thing that worried me the most was my mom. She's 89 and she's like down the street from me. So we actually like moved her for a few days in the big city of Sacramento to my sister's house. So, but I mean, it's things like that where you do have quite a few elderly out here and you really worry about them.
Oh,
Too glad you don't live in Texas.
Yeah. I'm glad I don't live in Texas, although. Or is that what you said? Good thing you don't live in Texas.
Texas. That's it.
Not
Well,
recording yet, right? I just want to make sure.
yeah, hold on a second. Oh, we are
let's
recording. Look at
just
that.
say we recorded and not recorded.
No, I'll chop that off, you know.
thank you, Cindy. Scott, do you know if he's in town or is he in Alameda, Cindy?
Scott is here.
Okay, I didn't know. I
He
can't.
was on a minute ago.
You can't see him?
No,
No.
I mean, you don't see his face, but
No,
he's
I
got this
don't.
black.
he says he has no power at the cabin. He's
Come to
He's
walk
in,
across the
meeting,
street.
but not, he doesn't have any audio. Okay, so it just came on.
We came on and went off again. We lost Donna again.
No, we
Yeah,
didn't.
well, Donna's in
Yeah.
Mexico,
I know, but she was here a minute ago. And now she's gone.
right?
She's here. She's got a little black box. It says Donna
Yeah.
Dolinar and Scott Matheson's there.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Donna, can you speak, please?
Gone.
Can you hear me?
No,
Just
we
blinked
really
off.
didn't.
I'll mute myself then.
Don't do that.
Blinked off
Oh,
me.
here's Alex. Great.
There's Alex came and went. Oh, there's Alex.
Hi. Hi, Alex.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, pretty good. We just had a power outage, so we're wondering how many people on this side of the mountain will be able to attend. But people are coming back on.
We didn't have any power outage here in Downeyville.
Oh, yeah, nah.
Yeah. we got bills here.
Jeez.
There's only one of me here and like 5 of you there in Sierra City.
I know.
I didn't have any in Clarksburg in case anybody was
There's
wondering.
Scott. He does have a face.
No, Scott. Yeah, but he's in Alameda. I can tell by the background.
Decoupage.
Yeah.
It's just a new background that I put on the computer. It's always in Alameda. Just kidding.
All right, yeah.
It's good to see you, Scott.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, I'm trying to get numbers in my head of whether we have a quorum. I'm just
do.
thinking ahead.
We have
So we-
6. We have 6 members, so we have a quorum.
Okay, great, because we
We're
don't
missing,
have,
we're missing Nordis, Bell, Linda. Who else are we missing? Oh, Sandy, and one more.
Lynn,
Lynn, yeah.
oh, is Lynn here tonight at all, Dawn?
I'm in Sparks, so I'm not sure. I think she was planning to attend. I don't know.
Okay,
Linda won't be here though.
okay, right, yeah, I just got the email from Linda.
Okay.
And then I don't know who 86201, oh, that's Sandy. Sandy,
Hi.
hi, perfect, you can hear us?
Sandy? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great, so glad that you could
Good.
come tonight.
And Susan Hopkins is on.
And yes, Susan's here now, and Bill, of course, it's good to see Bill and the Davidsons. I
Yes.
want you
thank
to know, Alicia, the Davidsons are good, great Democrats from the state of Minnesota,
Oh, wow.
Oh, my.
Wow.
but they spend time in Downeyville.
Oh,
So-
okay.
So
No,
they
no.
come, they come in the summer and they have a
Okay.
cabin, and they're gonna be doing a fundraiser for Sarah County Democrats this summer. We think. I haven't
volunteer.
forgotten,
Yeah, watch what you
We'll
say.
be out
Dave.
there in a month.
but anyway,
Oh,
we're
good.
happy to have them here. They kind of round out our group here. So, anyway, so I think.
They
this
spend
might-
time in Downeyville because the power stays on.
Well,
Exactly.
it went out the last time we were there.
Yeah.
I had
Yeah, I
a
was
question about
gonna-
that cell phone tower that's there. Does anybody know about that?
It works
Cell
for the
phone tower?
government, I think.
No. Say that again, David, please.
It seems to me
Yeah,
there was
there's a cell phone
service in
tower
the
going
tower.
up behind the courthouse. Is that,
I don't know what's happening with that.
uh,
Paul, do you know about the cell tower happening?
About what?
No, the cell tower. Do you know
Downeyville.
when are they doing
I
that?
think it's
Courthouse.
proceeding, but I haven't heard anything lately. I think they approved it.
Yeah.
Let's call the
They're
meeting. to
looming
order.
over us, waiting to fall on the whole town probably.
Okay, let's call the meeting to order. And we do have Alicia Fernandez here. She's our redistricting commissioner. And she works for the California Citizens Redistricting Commission. And she's coming from, or lives in Clarksburg, Yolo County. And yeah, we welcome you. Thank you so much. Today's kind of a special day, isn't it? In that I'm hearing on the news, we may lose a
Yes.
congressional seat, and that,
Right. We just got, I listened to the news conference at noon, and we are losing one US congressional seat. We're currently at 53 and we are going down to 52. And that doesn't mean that California's population has decreased. It just means it's not increasing as a quick enough pace as some other states like Texas, I believe, gained 2 seats. And I think Florida gained 2. They gained 1 or 2. I can't think.
Yeah, we got
I don't
one.
know all the numbers off the top of my head, but
I think Texas was
Losing
the
one.
only got 2.
pardon?
I think Texas was the only one
Alicia,
that
can we
increased
do,
by
do we
2.
lose?
hang on a minute, let's let people talk. Try not to talk over one another, please. Go ahead, Paul.
I was just saying, according to the map I saw today, Texas is the only one that increased by 2.
Mm.
Florida thought they would, but they only got 1.
Okay, go ahead, Scott. Scott, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I was just asking Alicia if we can pick one we lose.
If you
What?
could what?
We picked the seat.
Oh. No, we're recording now, right? No.
We are recording.
My official position is no.
And Alicia,
good,
I
though.
have a quick question for you. Because of this loss, I do remember Trump closing down the census earlier than it should have been. Could that have affected our situation of having of us losing a congressional seat?
I think COVID affected the situation in terms of the ability to really count everyone. I mean, you can only do so much. When we talked with the census people, once we were established and everybody was appointed, they said they were ready to go. They had all of these strategies and all these activities that were going to take place. And 2 weeks later, everything shut down. So everything that they had strategized in order to reach Californians, throughout the state, basically had to go out the window, and they had to rethink how they're going to try to reach all Californians. I will say, I believe that the census deadline was extended. And then what happened was he wanted to bring it back. Trump did. And so it did, in terms of when it was, I think it was supposed to go until the end of October, and they ended up shutting it down like the first week in October or something like that. So, yeah, that's
Okay.
so I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Let's see, was it Scott or was it Paul? Our population, California, is almost at 40 million. So I'm not sure how close that is, but what will happen is we have a statewide database, and they will analyze the numbers to see how they align with what they think the population should be. And then we'll go from there.
Thank you. Well, if you'd like, would you like to start your presentation?
Sure. Let me try to do this share screen. I'm not very, it might actually work. I shouldn't act so surprised, but sometimes it works out, right?
Oh, nice.
Okay, let's see. Oops.
Looks good.
Can everyone see that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Let me try to, can you see it clearly? It's
Yes.
good. Okay.
Yes.
So obviously you are all very informal. I love that. So I will be informal too. I'm going to go through the presentation, and normally I just wait for questions at the end, but stop me anytime. How's that? Is that a good way to go around about this?
I think, yeah, that's perfect for us, as long as it's okay with you.
Yes, I'm fluid. I just got done doing a Spanish presentation, so that was very stressful for me. I didn't know how to say redistricting in Spanish. It was actually comical. So anyway, so with that, I'll just do a little bit about myself. So I'm Alicia Fernandez. I am, as what Sylvia said, I'm from Clarksburg in Yolo County. It's a small farming community right outside of Sacramento. Most of my life, I've worked for the state government in different capacities, mainly in the business area. That was what I studied in college. And then the last 15 years was as an investigator. And I recently retired as a senior special agent. In terms of a little bit of background, both my parents immigrated from Mexico before I was born, and went on to have 8 children. All 8 of us worked for the same farmer that my dad worked for. But on the flip side of it, my parents really stressed education. So all of us went to college, thank goodness to my parents. And then from there, we just kind of took off a little bit. For me, my passion is agriculture, but it's also education. I was a school board member for 14 years. And the only reason I am no longer school board trustee is because I had to resign once I was appointed to the commission. So with that, we will go ahead and start the presentation, because I don't really like to talk about myself. So here we go. California Redistricting Basics. And that's our website, is redrawthelineca.org. So if you ever want any information in terms of our meetings, any sort of documents that you may want, this presentation is actually on our website as well. So if you ever just want to download it and, reminisce about how wonderful this presentation was, feel free to do that. Sorry. We're going casual, right, everyone? Okay, here we
Right.
go.
Yes.
Okay, and I just want to make it clear that this is an educational presentation. So I cannot take any public input in terms of if you want to tell me how your district should look or should not look, or what your community is. I can't take that information. That information can only be received at a full commission meeting, or there's many other ways that you can submit input. You can do it now. You can go on our website and we have an automated communities of interest tool that you can actually go in. And I say it's very similar to a Google Maps, because you can actually go there, drill down to your area and actually draw the lines around a specific map, and you can submit it and it will be submitted electronically to us. So, but just a reminder, we can't talk about, you can't give me your public input. Of course, you can ask questions about redistricting. That is fair game. Or we can talk about, let's see, power outages, right? That was a good topic before we started. I'm way okay with that. So redistricting. So redistricting is drawing new boundaries that determine which Californians are represented by each electoral district. And why we redraw district maps. And it may be very basic for everyone. You may know this already, but I'm going to just go with the basics right now. We redraw based on the census, because every 10 years, the population changes in California and in every state. We have people that come in, people that go out, people that move within California. And so every 10 years, we use the census data to redraw the map so that redraw the district boundaries so that the districts are as close to possible as being equal, so that there is proper representation and fair representation for all. Here we just have, people born, they're born, they pass away, they move. We talked about that. And so again, areas that were once roughly the same number of people become unequal. So the whole purpose of redistricting is to equalize that, equalize the districts. And your voice, let me just get to that slide, because there's one piece that I always like to read. So bear with me as I read. One of the greatest powers that the people of California have is to elect their own representatives to conduct the business of their government. How the district boundaries are configured can make the difference between empowering and maximizing the voters' voices, or minimizing and muting those voices. In most other states, politicians redraw districts and often end up drawing safe districts for themselves to allow them to stay in office. So the major benefit of this, of course, is taking it out of the politician's hand and putting it into the hands of the people. And we're 14 commissioners. We didn't know each other. We started with 20,000 applications, and a year later ended up with 14. The state auditor went through this huge vetting process that got down to who we are, the 14 of us. And as I noted earlier, redistricting has been used at times to exclude communities from political power. And so why I'm here is I want to continue to voice that we want everyone to fully participate in this process. The only way for us to know what your community looks like, or what your community is, or who you want to be next to, is by you letting us know. And how redistricting affects you. The vote, so power to the people. The Voters First Act in California, it transferred the power, as I mentioned earlier, of drawing the district maps away from the politician into the hands of the people. Championing your issues. And so here, most people, I would think everybody would want to have the opportunity to elect someone that is going to champion your issues, fight for your causes. This, as well as funding. You also have certain funding priorities. I have priorities. I think we all have priorities. As I mentioned earlier, mine were education and agriculture. Some may be electrical power, or whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, we want to have the ability to elect officials that will represent us. And hopefully that will happen by having districts that are drawn fairly. And in terms of community boundaries, we want to know what those boundaries are. Just quickly, the road that we're going through, as I mentioned earlier, we wait for the census information. Actually, we don't wait for the census information, because we are already, we have already received and continue to receive communities of input. We already have information from many Californians. And so every 10 years, we use that information, the census information. At the end of September, they will actually give us the redistricting data. Right now, what happened today is they let the states know how many congressional seats they will have. And as I noted earlier, we went from 53 to 52 due to our slower growth rate. But we still are the highest populated state in the country. And so then what we use is that information that we'll get in September that will be drilled down into district tracks. So that's the information that we will start using to draw our districts. And reapportionment, I already talked about that. That's what happened today with the federal allocation of the House seats. And then we use that information to draw the boundaries of the new districts. And this is what leads to fair representation, is to be able to choose your own candidates. And we draw the lines for the congressional seats, which will be 52 this time, for the state assembly, state senate, and the Board of Equalization. So there's quite a few districts we have to draw, 4 different maps, but quite a few district boundaries. And so, oh, I'll keep going. There's another. And why independent redistricting matters. Here, it's a way to show how, with a community of 50 people, we have 60% orange and 40% purple. This is drawn to show how districts could be drawn. These 2 middle ones can show how it can be drawn fairly, where you have 3 orange and 2 purple, which so each district would consist of 10. And then this is drawn differently, but it still leads to the same result of 3 orange and 2 purple. And then the far right, the 2, that is what you would call gerrymandering. And that would be that the results of how these two districts are drawn is not proportionate to the electorate. The first one is showing the majority of all orange. So in theory, you could have orange dominate every district. And in the last one here, it shows if it's drawn appropriately, it could be that the purple would have the majority. However, they only had 40% earlier on. So it's just kind of showing different ways to divide 50 people into 5 districts. The first 3 being what we would consider fair. And then the last 2 would be unfair.
That's more than I can handle. More enough that I follow.
Okay, I'm going to keep going. Unless Susan, was that Susan? Did you have a question? No? Okay. We are required to follow 6 criteria when drawing the districts, and it must be followed in this order that's here. The first one is equal population. The districts must be of equal population to comply with the US Constitution. Of course, it's not going to be perfectly to right down to the person, because when we get the census information, the tracts, you can't draw it down to every single person. It's more of, okay, if you drill down to a certain tract, it'll have 20 people, or it might have 50 people. In Los Angeles, it may have more people. In your area, in Sierra County, you might have a tract that might only have like 10 people just because of the area. So the first requirement that we have to make sure that we adhere to is equal population. The second one is the Voting Rights Act. And this one is that districts must comply with the Voting Rights Act to ensure that minorities have an equal opportunity to elect representatives of their choice. And this is such an important criteria that we have gone forward to actually contract, or we're in the process of contracting with Voting Rights Act Council, so that we ensure that we do adhere to this. As you might imagine, if the maps are, if they sue our maps, oftentimes in some states, they can sue it based on voting rights allegations of not adhering to the voting rights. And the third one is contiguity, and the districts must be drawn so that all parts of the district are connected to each other. So in other words, it's going to be almost, there's similarities between 3 and 5. This one is you can't, a district must be connected. You can't bypass another area, and that's similar to number 5. So what was done in the past is you would have these oddly shaped districts, or you'd have districts that weren't connected and you had a whole neighborhood or other district in between. So number 3 is we have to make sure that all parts are connected. Number 4, communities of interest. Districts must minimize the division of cities, counties, neighborhoods, and communities of interest to the extent possible. And that's what that's what this educational session is. And that's one of our main focuses right now before we actually start gathering public input in our public meetings. Is we're going out to educate Californians to please participate by providing us with their communities of interest. Number 5 is geographically compact, and the district should be geographically compact such that nearby areas of population are not bypassed. For more distant population, the requirement refers to density, not shape. And 6 is nesting. When practicable, each Senate district should be comprised of 2 complete and adjacent assembly districts, and Board of Equalization district shall be comprised of 10 complete and adjacent state Senate districts. And one of the major things we always want to point out is that in addition, the place of residence of any incumbent or political candidate may not be considered in the creation of a map, and districts may not be drawn for the purpose of favoring or discriminating against an incumbent, political candidate, or political party. Oops, okay. And here we just want to show you the different redistricting efforts that could be occurring in your area. I've talked about the state one that we're doing: congressional, Senate, state assembly, and Board of Equalization. There's also counties. Many of the counties will have their own process in terms of redistricting based on the information they get from the census as well. We also have cities that will go through this process, school districts, and there may be other district efforts like water districts, community college. I believe there's fire districts as well. So they all use the information that the census is going to provide. And what we want to do is we want to encourage you to, of course, participate in the state process, but please participate in as many processes, local processes, as you can. And the history kind of went through this a little bit. Prior to 2010, the legislatures drew the line. And in 2008, Californians voted and passed the Voters First Right Act. And so that was to have a separate independent redistricting commission to draw the state Senate, state assembly, and Board of Equalization maps. And then in 2010, they added the congressional districts. In 2010, that was the first independent redistricting commission in California. And now we are the second one, and we're building upon what the 2010 Citizens Redistricting Commission did. And other states I'm just noting there is Arizona, Colorado, Idaho, Michigan, Montana, and Washington. Where was our other 2 from? Minnesota?
Yeah, the
No.
Davisons.
Yes.
We've got a divided legislature, the only one in the country. So we're going to have to during the next year.
Okay.
And the legislature decides the districting, and then the courts generally figure it out.
Okay. And there are some other states that have a quasi, it's not a true redistricting, because with us, it's a true independent, because we are actually the ones that certify and approve our maps. There are some other states that have commissions, but oftentimes the legislature selects who's on the commission, or the commission, it might be random, but it still has to go through the legislature for approval. So what would happen in those situations is they would submit various options, and then the legislature would decide.
Can you talk about the timelines for California? I know that Minnesota is going to be next year sometime.
Yes, and I'm getting to that. So thank you so much, David. That's great. Thank you for prompting. I'm not going to go over this. This is just the selection process. I kind of talked about it earlier. It took a year to get through this process, and finally appointed in August. So we started the process in August of 2019, and we're appointed in 2020 of August. And these are all of the commissioners. As I mentioned earlier, there's 14. It so happens that there's 7 that you would consider southern, 7 northern. And it's really an array of backgrounds and experience. And here, as you can see, there's 5 there's purposely, the law says there's 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans, and 4 no party preference to even it out. And when there's ever some of the voting in terms of when our final maps are drawn, and also when we hire our positions, we have to adhere to a supermajority. And what that means is there has to be at least 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats, and 3 no party preference that also approve whatever the action is. And commissioner's duty. So what we're doing now is we're conducting our outreach, and which right now consists of our educational phase, and we are transitioning into the public input meetings that we'll start having in June. And what happens is when the commission, so the commission is kind of dormant for 9 years. So there's a brand new commission that's established. So when we're established and when we're appointed, we have no staff. We have like 2 temporary people. So we basically have to start from scratch. So it's taken us 4 or 6 months to get up and running. And in about a year, we'll go away again. And then in 2030, a whole new commission is going to try to dust everything up and start over again. So in terms of what we're doing is the outreach, we have the public input meetings. We're going to collect community input and hear public testimony. So in terms of collecting community input, that does not have, you don't have to attend a meeting. You don't have to call into a meeting to give your input. You can actually do it online. You can mail it in. You can call our phone, whatever's most convenient. Of course, if your electricity is out, I'm not sure how your internet will work, but the mail will work, right? Hopefully. So, and obviously our ultimate responsibility to draw the maps. And so for Congress, this time it'll be 52, not 53. That's what it was last time or currently. Senate will be 40, Assembly 80, and Board of Equalization. And here we just kind of give an example for Sacramento with the 4 different maps that we're going to draw: Congress, Senate, Assembly, and Board of Equalization, where Sacramento would be included in those districts. And what we have done, California is huge, as we all know. We divided out California into 11 zones, and 2 commissioners volunteered for each zone. I picked D because that's where I'm from, and that's where I'm more familiar with. And Commissioner Lamont is going on this trip with me, which is great. He's actually from Southern California, so I think that's very helpful to have a team from Southern and Northern together. And so and just so that you know, my initial zone was B and D, and fortunately they split it up because that was like 17 counties. That was a little bit overwhelming for me. So we split those up, and so we've actually done initial outreach based on census. We try to connect with some of the community-based organizations, and we are in the process of hiring for our outreach personnel. And then hopefully once they are up and running, they can really try to go out and develop as many relationships as possible with the community-based organizations or trusted messengers. Also looking for our media, what's the best form of communication to get the word out.
Alicia, can I ask you a quick question?
Of course you can.
I like your zone. Can we keep that as our redistrict map?
I can't take any public input at this point.
I want to be with Nevada County. And I know I'm not supposed to say anything, but I really like your zone.
I like my zone too.
Yeah.
But you know what? I really want you to go. I want you to check out our drawmycacommunity.org.
Okay.
There you can go online and you can actually draw whatever your community is, and you can submit it electronically. And if you leave an email address, they will actually send it back to you so that you know what it is. And you can actually submit that to like your county if you want to say, this is what I want to. But anyway, I'm not receiving public input today. So.
Right. So you said it was Draw My Community?
Draw My CA.
Oh, my CA.
.org. And it'll be it'll come up on one of these.
Okay.
It might be the next one. Maybe you beat me to it. Nope. Communities of interest. So a community of interest is a concentrated population which shares common social and economic interests that should be included within a single district for purposes of its effective and fair representation. And a community of interest can be anything, any way you define it. It can be cultural, it could be living in the same area, It could be your work environment. It could be faith-based. It could be, I don't know, wherever you go hiking or whatever the case may be. So it can be whatever you define it to be. And also what I want you to think about is you could actually have different communities of interest. Like for me, I'd probably have one that would be my immediate community, my area. And then when I was working, it might include that. Or when my kids were going to school, it might include that. Or it might include maybe where all of my family's within like half an hour of each other. So the 7 of us now are within half an hour. So maybe that would be my community. So just remember that you don't have to be restricted to one community of interest. You could have multiple. And when you go on that tool, it'll actually ask you now which neighboring districts or areas should you be included with and why, and which shouldn't you be included with and why? Because we are going to use that information. Once we get the census data, we will overlap all the community of interest information that we have. And as we start drilling down, and if there's any sort of conflicting or there's, because at some point we're gonna probably have to divide up somebody's community of interest, but the more information we get on a community, the better. Oh, and just so that you know, communities of interest is not the same as a district, but they're building blocks. So I would say it's similar to Legos, right? You have a Lego little piece of it, but it really isn't. You haven't made the house yet. So you have to build many pieces, take many pieces of the Lego to build something. And that's kind of what community of interest is, just one piece of it.
I have another question.
Oh my gosh, Sylvia, the questions.
I know. So this zone D that you're in charge of, how did you decide on those counties for you and for the commission?
So how we went about it initially was census had already split out their, they didn't call it zones, they called it, oh gosh, it was something other than zones. I want to look at my regions. So census developed their efforts into 10 regions. And so that's why I said initially I had the two zones. And so after about a month or so of all the commissioners, so what happened is the commissioners were doing the work. So after a month or two of saying this is just too much, we kind of like redistributed everything to see how we felt the redistribution should be. And so we came up, so if you go onto the census website, they're not going to match anymore because we actually moved some counties around into different zones. And it wasn't necessarily based on population. It was area. Some of it was population, obviously, because LA County is by itself. That's just population in itself is enough for one.
Yeah.
So, and just because I have zone D, it does not mean that I'm the expert in zone D or that I will be in charge of drawing the boundaries or the districts for zone D. No, we all do it together, all 14 of us.
Right. I just feel like I have more in common with Nevada, Placer, and Sacramento County than I do with, Shasta County and those regions up there. Just saying.
Okay, I didn't hear that, but anyway.
Okay.
Alicia, why is Orange County by itself?
Let me go back. Orange County also, actually, that's one of the higher populated counties in California. And that's why it has so many communities. That's why it's by itself, as LA is also. So those two are huge in terms of your outreach efforts and reaching people. Okay. Let's see. And I've already gone through communities of interest a little bit, but in terms of how you can submit how you can submit your communities of interest and oral testimony, you can provide personal stories, you can provide historical context, or whatever the case may be. In actuality, I mean, if you like personal stories, you tend to remember those more than, I think because we're more similar to, if I would say like Elk Grove and Sacramento versus something that could be cultural, something that binds you together. I mean, for me, that's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
A written testimony is a description that can be used to tell your community stories. community issues, oftentimes communities get involved in redistricting because they feel their issues have not been adequately addressed by their elected representatives. Again, are there issues that you feel that need to be focused on for your community?
Mhm.
I mean, for my community, I would assume that we would want to talk about agriculture and water not being taken away. You know, not that I have a problem with that, but I kind of have a problem with that, but that's okay.
Mhm.
Boundary maps, again, create a map of your neighborhood or your area. So we really needed to be specific in terms of where those boundaries are. Because if you say, I think that everything north of Sacramento should be in a district all by itself. What does that mean? North of Sacramento? Is that from all the way to the border, right? To
Right.
Oregon, California. So be very specific.
Mhm. Okay.
And right here on this one, Sylvia, drawmycacommunity.org.
Oh, yeah.
So this is what you would log. I mean, you don't even log in. You can even submit it anonymously if you want to. You
Yeah.
go in, you describe your community.
Mhm.
Let me go ahead on this one.
Yeah, no, I like what you say about historical context. I mean, here in Sierra City, you know, gold was panned and mined here, and then it ended up at Sutter's Fort, right, in Sacramento.
Right.
We also send some of our kids to UC Davis to school, and Yolo County's very personal to me. I went to school there.
Oh,
And
okay.
Sac State is another stepping stone, as well as Sierra Community College. Like I say, I feel like I have more in common with these counties than I do the Northern District. I'm just talking out loud so everybody can hear.
Yeah, yeah, because you probably thought you had your mute on, so I don't know.
I could do that, you know.
No, I'll be
Does Cindy
quiet.
have the power? Cindy has the
Yeah,
power.
I do. I do
So
have the power.
Yeah, okay. So when we say describe your community, it could be what brings you together, what's important about your community. Are there as I mentioned earlier, are there nearby areas that you want to be included with? Are there nearby areas that you don't want to be included with? And in either case, you know, please describe why. And then the second part of this tool is you're actually going to go on there. It looks like a Google Maps, and you actually draw your map, draw your boundaries. And then the last part is to send it. You can put an email address on there if you want, or if not, if you do put an email address, you will actually get it sent back to you. So then you have, I guess, proof that you turned it in, and I believe it'll actually give you a community of interest number. So if you ever wanted to go back, you could call it up. You could call up that specific community of interest that you submitted.
Okay.
And ways to provide public input, the one we just talked about was drawmycacommunity.org. That's we call it our COI tool. And then we are also in the process of finalizing a paper community of interest tool, a community of interest form. It'll be similar to the information that is on the Draw My CA community, but it'll have prepaid postage. And so you can just write it out and mail it back in. You can also go on our website and click on Draw My CA community icon, and it'll take you directly to this COI tool. You can also submit your public input by email, and we have the email right here, votersfirstact@crc.ca.gov. You can also call us, 916-323-0323, and you can also submit it via mail. And here's the address right there. And just so you also know that the online COI tool is available in English and 12 other languages, and they're right here. You've got your Spanish and Armenian, Korean. So it's available in all of these languages, and also there's tutorials in those languages as well. So we're trying to reach as many people as possible. And also, if you submit your COI tool in something other than English, we will translate it into English and make sure that it is included with our database. Language access. And so right now we've translated our fact sheet, our flyer, our frequently asked questions, and this presentation in English plus the 12 languages that are right here. Those are on our website. Also, interpretation and public comment at our business meetings may be provided with 5 days advance notice if you need interpretation other than English. Written public comment can be sent to the CRC in any format, as I mentioned earlier, and we will translate it into English to make sure that it's included with our database. And we already talked about that we would translate non-English inputs. And if you do need an interpreter to provide input during a meeting, we ask that you notify the commission at least 5 business days prior to a meeting to request the services. And we'll attempt to contract with an interpreter in the requested language. For the 12 that we have adopted, those we do have contracts for, those languages. But if
How
it's
did
something
you-
beyond the 12, we will do what we can to get an interpreter for that language.
How did you choose those languages? As an example, French and German are not included. How did they choose those particular languages?
And so these were the languages that the census also used as well. And they were the top 12 spoken in California at the time. So that's how we chose those languages.
Do you have any plans, Alicia, to expand those? For instance, I know when I was down in the valley, a lot of our Filipino people spoke Ilocano, not Tagalog. So are you going to be expanding to other languages, or are you just going to use interpreters for the other ones?
Right. Right now, we're just going to use interpreters for the other ones if they require it. And in their Khoi tool, they are also going to translate it in Hmong, and there was another language, I can't remember. There's 2 other languages that will be available in our Khoi tool, not yet though. So there are a couple of them, but other than that, you're right, Paul, it's going to be providing interpreter services. And then, I mean, I'm going to go back. We're also right now, we're trying to figure out, we receive money for outreach and we're trying to grant that out. We're trying to figure out how to grant that out. We're running into a few roadblocks. I know you'll be surprised, but there's a little bit of bureaucracy involved with this. And so part of that may also be if we contract with someone for them to provide translation or interpreter services. And so the legislature was forward thinking. I know, keep your comments to yourself. But in July 17th, 2020, the Supreme Court ruled that we would have until December 15th to submit our maps, because right now our requirement is to submit the maps August 15th, but we will not receive the census data until after that date. So because they thought that the census data would be delayed, this went through, and if the census results are received after the 31st, the commission's deadline will be adjusted accordingly. So right now, based on the information that we have, we believe that our maps will be due sometime between the end of December and end of January. We're not sure. It really depends on when the clock starts ticking the day we get the data from the census, which is expected in August, September. We're not sure yet. And here's a timeline. Paul, were you asking about the timeline? I can't remember if it was Paul or if it was Bill. It was David. David was asking about the timeline. So just be aware that this timeline is fluid because we don't know when the census data is going to come. Right now, we're in this education presentation, the California Redistricting Basics presentation, and then we will transition into public input meetings. And if we weren't in COVID, we would actually be going out to the communities and have open meetings, a meeting with the public. We're hopeful at some point in time we'll be able to go out. We're not sure yet. And then here is when we expect the census data. Once we get the data, it's a statewide database. They actually have to work with the data to redistribute some of the information. For example, incarcerated people in California, the incarcerated people, the numbers come out from where they are incarcerated and go back to their prior residency. So that's something that they have to do. So normally that takes them anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. So we actually won't receive the census data until then, until end of September, October, sometime during that timeframe. And then at that point, once we receive the census data, we can actually start having public input meetings, and we call them line drawing sessions, because at that point we can actually see where the census tracts are. And we can overlay the communities of interest information that we've received. And then December, January timeframe. Oh, I'm sorry, November, December, we'll release our draft maps. And then after that, we'll have public input and meetings based on feedback of those maps. And then whenever our deadline is December, end of December, probably January, we'll submit our final maps to the Secretary of State. Again, no public input, just a reminder, Sylvia. And then, and if you want more of these sessions, please contact our commission, and here's the information as well as the contact person. Again, go on to the redraw.ca.org. They will have updated information on our meetings. They have they have information on if you want to request an educational session, or if you want to provide your public input. For the most up-to-date information, please go there. And so with that, let's see what I want to do.
So Alicia, a question.
Yes.
When, you show that the census information comes in to the state in August. Does it come to the Secretary of State? Is that who does the census send their information to?
It goes to our statewide database. They are located in Berkeley, and it may also go to the legislature. And so it's the statewide database gets the information on our behalf, because they're the ones that handle our communities of interest tool database. And so it goes to them. And then also that data, it can be found on the statewide database. It can be found there as well as on the census website. So if you ever wanted to go see the information and drill down, you could go there.
Thank you.
I'm going to stop sharing. Is that okay? Or does anybody need to go back to anything?
Mm-mm.
No.
Okay. All right.
Is your contact information on there?
Yes.
Well, if you had a question, would they address it to you or to that contact that's at the end?
You can send it to that. Oh, you want me to go back?
I have it. David. If you want, I can give it to you later. For Patricia? Patricia Vasquez, is that who you want, David? David? You're muted, David.
There we go. Thanks.
Let's see.
Yeah. I think there may be some value in being proactive about what we're doing here in Minnesota, and so I'll raise the issue. And this is good information.
And David, you could also email Voters First Act at crc.ca.gov. And if you want, you can, if it's to me specifically, just to have them send it, just put, it's for me, and they'll forward it to me. But that is where all of our emails normally go to, and then they siphon it off to whoever it belongs to.
Okay. So if I find a hotshot legislator or somebody who's interested in following up on it, you might hear from them.
Okay, sounds great.
Alicia, when you're drawing the boundaries, as an example, the boundaries you showed us for the districts, there were no counties like chopped in half. When you draw the boundaries of the assembly districts and things like that, or the congressional districts, will counties be divided, do you think? Let me give you an example. The community of interest of Sierra Valley and the community of interest of Sierra City and Downeyville and Allegheny and Poverty Hill are different. We're much more connected. Sierra Valley's much more connected north and with Lassen, Plumas, Modoc counties, and the western portion is much more connected with Nevada, Yuba, Placer. So would you ever divide the counties?
Possibly. I don't know yet, right? But possibly you could. I'm going to go back really quick to, and again, just something you might want to think about. We have received some input, and where they are actually by map, like by congressional map, or they're providing input for the 4 different maps on how they feel like they should be, combined. And so if we go here to criteria number 4, is districts must minimize the division of cities, counties, and neighborhoods. So for example, we may not get to 4, maybe in a certain area. So there's a possibility of dividing up a county. We don't know. But again, Bill, as you were saying that, for example, I'm not taking any public input, but for example, if I were to say my county plus the one south have more interest, that's what my community would be. And that's what I would submit. And again, Bill, as I mentioned earlier, you can have more than one community of interest.
Currently, Nevada County is divided in terms of congressional district, I think also Assembly and Senate. I'm not sure about those. And I think Placer County is partly divided.
And Glenn County is divided.
In Glenn County, yeah. So it's
Sonoma County is also divided.
Yeah, so that does happen.
Right.
Yeah.
As I can
that's
see,
in the press anyway.
Right. You try to minimize it, but if you go back to trying to create districts that as equal population as possible, at some point you're going to have to divide cities. You're going to have to divide counties probably, but we try to minimize that.
On the equal population, Alicia, are you required to have it within each district within a certain percentage of all the rest? So you can have some variation, but it has to be within a certain percentage?
Yes, Paul, very, very good. Great question. We actually just discussed this at our last meeting. Was it 2 weeks ago? I can't remember. The commission has the authority to decide what variance, like plus or minus 5%, plus or minus 10%. I would hope it's not 10%. That's actually really high. So we will decide what that variance will be within the district. And then that's what we will use when we start drawing our districts. And the line drawer that we have, we actually had a training session the other day in terms of how it would work. And it was actually pretty neat. You could, if you move some of the lines around, it would actually show you within an area, if it's plus or minus 3% or whatever the case may be. That way, as you're moving the lines, you can actually see the impact to your population. Like if you said, I want if we're doing Board of Equalization, because that one's usually easier. If we're saying that each one has to contain close to 10 million, and that's how you start drawing, you get bigger and bigger and you start moving it around, and that will tell you plus or minus how close you are to the 10 million. Does that make sense, Paul? I was using my hands. I think that was really helpful.
It does. I remember that in 2010 for drawing the districts here in Sierra County for the supervisorial districts, my boss, the assessor, was one of the people doing that. And they had a regulation. I think they had to have each district, I think it was within 2 people. I'm understanding why that's not possible, but I was guessing you might have percentages that you had to apply.
Yeah, it will be percentages.
so Alicia,
I believe.
So the commission actually decides that percentage, that's not prescribed?
Yes, the commission does.
Yeah.
What about dividing up groups of people like by color, as an example? Is there any way to make sure when you make these adjustments, you're not cutting a black section into 2 so it doesn't get fair representation?
Right, a great point, Bill. When we had the criteria, when I was doing the presentation, our second criteria is to ensure that we adhere to the Voting Rights Act. And so there will be sections in California that we will need to concentrate on so that we do not violate that. And that's our number 2 priority. So we have to take care of that before we even get to the other 4. But thank you, that's a very good point. Because we don't want the orange and purples to be, disproportionate.
So Alicia,
Go ahead, Cindy.
do you use, are the census tracts required to be complete? I mean, can't be divided? Or
Yes, that's the smallest, that is the smallest amount of population that we have is a census tract, so you can't split that up.
okay, so that's kind of a basic thing there. Those can't be done, so then you have to move on from there.
Right. Right.
And are there other criteria that you're not allowed to consider? Like I heard that you're not allowed to consider the divisions, the political divisions.
Right. That's the only thing right now is that yeah.
That's the only one.
Mhm.
There's talk about the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico becoming states. As I understand it, the districting depends on the federal population divided by the number of legislators. And
Of
how would that
congressional
affect
seats.
it? It might change the number of legislators, for example, in California, or would it?
Not California has, well, not for your Senate and Assembly. Those would remain the same because that's California. That's California Constitution, right? And Board of Equalization. How it will affect your US congressional seats, I'm not sure how they're going to do that because they just came out with the numbers. And it would be very difficult, I would think, if they would try to take away seats once they've announced it. And I did hear that the other day, David, as well, with Washington, DC wanting to be its own state.
Mhm.
Can I ask a question about populations?
Of course.
I actually thought it was straightforward and logical, but you're talking about populations of everybody, not just voters.
Correct. It's every individual in California. And that's how the census is
Present.
taken, by every individual in California. And that's how we redraw the districts, regardless of your status or your ability to vote,
Or age.
right?
Well, it seems like if you have a community with large families, but that means there's not very many voters, but there's a lot of people, versus a community of old people like Boosters, but there are a lot of voters. It's just sort of strikes me odd a little.
Yeah, but you have to be representing everyone, whether they're voters or not.
Right,
So it makes sense. Everybody
Yeah, I
has to be.
I get it.
right. I can see you're working it through, you're trying to
Democrat
work the logic through your head, which yeah.
And did
I
you
get
say
it.
that, did you say that prisoners, the one in prison, are counted where their home is, not where the prison is?
Correct. So how they are counted both locally and at state prisons is they're not counted at the facility where they're incarcerated. They are counted based on their last residency prior to being incarcerated.
Would you be involved in, your commission be involved in seceding from the union?
No.
Oh, dang it.
Was that a trick question or? It's been a long day for me, so I don't know if I heard that right.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to mess with that Voting Rights Act anymore.
Might be worse, Don.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I know.
that's what unfortunately I've learned that in my life, that every time I think it can't get any worse, sometimes it gets worse. So we got to be careful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what you wish for.
Hopefully you can't take the state of Jefferson into consideration either.
This is an interesting thing because we have these great, big, huge prisons in our area.
Right.
And now the ones in Susanville, we have big federal prisons in Hurlong and big state prisons in Susanville. All of those people are going to be counted in the place they're from instead of in Lassen County, is what
Correct.
you're saying. And this is the
Right.
first time they've done that?
I think they did that last time too.
I think they did it last time too. What happens is the counties, so the legislature can require the counties and the cities to do that, but they can't require the commission. They can only request that we do it. And so we opted to do it, similar to how the counties and similar to how the counties are doing it. And right now, the only other little piece of it is for federal. Bill, you bring up a good point. We don't know what to do with the federal because they are not forthcoming to let us know where the incarcerated people, where their last residence was, because there are incarcerated people in federal facilities in California that aren't from California.
Right.
And likewise, there's also Californians potentially in other federal facilities outside of California, right? So theoretically, you'd want to get those numbers from the other states and bring them back to.
Yeah, well,
California.
the ones in the federal prison in Herlong, but there's 2 prisons there.
Mhm, right.
They're from all over, mostly from Idaho as an example, or Nevada, or Washington. Not very many of them are from California.
And that's the issue, is we don't know. That's the information. The Federal Bureau of Prisons is not releasing that information. We've tried, the statewide database has tried. I believe some of the other community-based organizations have tried, but so far, that's kind of an unknown of what we're going to do with the incarcerated people in federal facilities.
So Alicia, is that because, the rest of the country is not doing a redistricting commission and don't have the same rules California has? I mean, in, for instance, Michigan or Nevada or whatever, maybe they're not doing that. They're just counting them where the prison is. And so it would skew what's happening with their counts as well, to kind of repatriate them, sort of.
Right. So every state is different. I know that there's community-based organizations. There are other states that are doing it similar to how we're doing it. And there's some community-based organizations that are going to other states trying to get the rules changed so that it would be similar to how we're doing it.
Dara says that this is the first time that this law has been is in place for the incarcerated people.
I'm not sure.
The message that Dara, or the chat that Dara Hopper put up says, this is a new law. First time it'll be counted this way.
Yes.
Just so people know.
Yeah.
But I
Yes,
also
it
have a
is.
question. How do you calculate in people in active military?
So that is something different that we're looking at also. You are just on it, Paul. That information we'll also have to look at in terms of the numbers that we get. And active military, they also go through the census process, and they're supposed to identify where their residence is. So hopefully those numbers are already included if they're from California, and that's in California is where they consider their residence. Hopefully that's already included in the information.
Well, we're at 7:34. Are there any other questions from anybody else, even those on the phone, that would like to ask Alicia a question? If not, we'll go ahead and close if everybody's okay with that. Any other questions?
I'd just like to say thank you, Alicia, for coming and presenting and answering all these questions. It's got to be an incredibly difficult job to do this.
I was telling, I think one of my friends the other day, I'm like, I'm so glad I retired because it does take up there's quite a few commissioners that have another job. So they have a full-time job and then they have this job. And I did have both jobs for a while. And at the end of the day, it's, you can be as involved as you want to. But I am loving it. It's something different. I feel like I'm able to give back at a bigger level than I've done in the past. Because as I mentioned earlier, I really kind of just stuck to my community, stuck to my school, whatever my kids were in. And I just felt that this was something that I could do at a bigger level to affect more people. So no, but thank you very much for inviting me today. And I apologize for having to ask you to have this at 6:30, but we had a Spanish presentation right prior to this. And I wanted to make sure that I didn't get to you late. I want to make sure that you're very respectful of your time. So thank you very much. This was fun. This was actually very nice and very low key. I really liked it. So thank you. And I hope that you don't have any power outages soon.
I know.
Yeah, right.
You've been filled. Yeah, this has been a great hour. Thank you so much. I've got so much information and you'll be hearing from me.
Okay. I hope I hear from all of you.
Yeah, we'll put all our heads together here and send you a really beautiful map of our new redistricted area.
Great. But each of you submit something separate too as well.
Okay.
So. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And
Okay,
take care. Good luck.
Okay, you too. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Fascinating work. I do have a couple of things. I'd like to call the meeting to order. I
Okay,
do
I'm
want-
gonna, Sylvia, I'm gonna stop recording now.
Yes.